All right, all right. How's it going, everybody? Want to welcome everybody to the Bad Wolf Show. Your man, the myth, the legend, Mr. James C. Lovett. And today we have a good friend of mine, a very influential, interesting person, to say the very least. Lyon Zagami will be here. Actually, matter of fact, he's in the green room right now, so we're going to have him on. So, guys, we are going to see and hear some of the most amazing information that we've probably ever had on our show. And without further ado, I'm going to bring the man on himself. So let's welcome him. And I can't wait to talk to him. So at least on the platform here, we've talked in private, but here we go. All right. So without further ado, let's hear from the man himself.
Thank you for having me on.
How are you doing, brother?
All great, all great. Today we are broadcasting after a very weird day for me because I was simply driving along in Palm Springs and suddenly at the crossroads I encountered Lady Gaga, one of the protagonists of my book, Volume 8. So it was kind of a particular encounter. At the crossroads, usually you meet the devil. This time I met Lady Gaga. But she was too busy in her car kind of fiddling with things, so she didn't even notice me. We were like facing each other at the lights, at the crossroads for a while. So she's apparently in town for some film festival, that's why.
Oh, okay.
But she's, of course, the protagonist of all the debauchery of the White House with Hunter Biden and a lot more, as we know.
Yes. Kind of familiar with some of that.
Well,
so first of all,
in my book, she actually has almost a whole chapter dedicated to her figure because of the importance, but also because she has used occult elements, very strong ones, in her documentary on Netflix. She actually used the music of Bobby Beausoleil, who is still in jail and who was part of the Manson family and who participated to the film Lucifer Rising, that then became the film Invocation of My Demon Brother, after this Bobby Beausoleil stole the original film and went in the middle of the desert in Death Valley and buried it there. So it's particular, definitely. But also we know, of course, of the political connection usually. But my book, as you know, mixes always geopolitics with the occult element. So I try to give a wide perspective. I hope that today we can discuss with you all of it. And of course, I'm glad to be here with you.
Well, I definitely thank you for coming on the show. It's always been a dream of mine to have a nice platform to be able to talk to people and kind of give people the behind the scenes look. So my normal platform, I kind of give the American people and apparently many people around the world a deeper understanding, as you know, of what's going on behind the veil. Most people, they live their normal life. They don't know their jurisdiction. They don't know who they are. They've lost their birthright. Some people have lost their children. All a part of these corporations, which they're doing business, but the playing field is not level because the average person is used as a pawn against their own fellow mankind, and they don't know what's going on. So the system basically makes us fight amongst ourselves when in all actuality, we should really know what's going on. It's one thing to do business, but you can't do fair business. And this benefits the corporations and certain municipalities and governmental entities. It benefits them. It doesn't benefit the people. So what we like to do here is we kind of show people, hey, this is what's really going on. You have a private side versus a public side. There are these various fraternities. There are these various things that you can use to improve your life and to help your fellow mankind and the planet. So my show kind of is very diverse in a way that whether it's dealing with passports, court scenarios, taxes, anything along the lines where the people are not able to see past that veil. Now, somebody like you, somebody like me, we've seen past the veil to certain degrees, through things we've been through, things in our life. but the average person hasn't. So that's one of the reasons why I want to thank you for being on the show, is to kind of provide a deeper level of understanding through the veil that even I myself have not seen. So one, I just want to ask you, how are you feeling? And then from there, just jump in. You can tell us anything you want, from how you got started, how you got into all of this crazy stuff, about your books, your family, your life, whatever you want to share. Platform is yours. I turn it over to you, good sir.
Well, as you know, I have been here in the United States since 2019, and not by my own choice, but because I had to flee Europe because of what I have been writing, my activism, also politically speaking, as the president of Italians for Trump, and many other things which I did, of course, all the exposure work against the Vatican. And so in the end, unfortunately, I had to flee my own country. So I understand completely what you mean with sovereignty, maybe of the individual, but at the same time, there is nobody on this planet who is literally free, because we all belong to the place that where we are born, because not only just as a physical location, but as, of course, a legal connotation that, of course, is connected to it. Myself, personally, I'm looking forward to become American, because Europe is at the moment a place which doesn't guarantee my activity. Of course, as a writer, as a journalist, was impossible over there. So I'm glad to be here, as America still seems to be fighting this war with the globalists, while in Europe there is no fight, because Europe is simply a dependency of the system, of the technocratic system that rules the New World Order. Now, this New World Order, of course, I've been discussing all this in my books, but the books are simply a way of getting deeper. I started my personal revelation in 2006, went public with my knowledge of the secret societies, of the New World Order. I denounced my previous past because I was fed up with certain compromises. And after that, I had the luck to encounter an investigative journalist called Greg Zismansky, who helped me at the beginning, as well as David Icke, who also started to publish some of my articles. And this served the purpose to immediately project me on a wider arena, because up until then I had been protagonist behind the scenes of this world, the world which is very reserved, very secretive. So I simply at one point couldn't go on, because my son was about to be born in July 2006. Then I was threatened in June 2006 during a meeting of the Monte Carlo Lodge, and I saw no future if not outside of that reality by denouncing it. It's a very dangerous thing, though, to be a whistleblower, as other people have proven. There is Snowden, who ended up in Russia, Assange ended up in a jail, and immediately when I started to do this thing, I had some retaliations. The intelligence services in Norway came to me, threatened me, and in the end, they actually convinced my ex-wife to side with them so she could get a job, so the whole family could work, because they are involved with a Islamic sect known as the Gulen movement. So all this is the basis for my Illuminati confessions. They started online between 2006, when I was still basically living in Norway, and then they ended up, basically, this Illuminati confession ended up in being a sort of, I mean, it was an experience for me to actually be able to publish this stuff online, but it was in the early days also a very scary experience, because there were a bunch of trolls, people that threatened me left, right, and center. So I had my old friends who were now my enemies, and at the same time, I didn't really find friends within what was back then known as the truth movement. I found a lot of people that were criticizing maybe the fact that I had been involved with the Muslims, the fact that I've been involved with the Jesuits, the fact that I've been involved with Freemasons. They all had their own ideas. And at that point, it was very difficult for me to put through my legitimacy, if not by writing books. And in 2009, thanks to my new wife now, I went to Japan, and in Japan I signed a book deal with at the time Benjamin Fulford, and then later on with Princess Kaoru Nakamaru, and I published a number of books. And up until 2012, only Japan was courageous enough to publish my books. However, Japan is a weird one, because Japan, you can actually publish everything, but when you start talking about them and their secret societies, then they completely block you. That's it. It's the end. And in my latest books, I started to do that, and they didn't really like it. So in the end, I was kind of forced just out of that. But I published 6 books, and I managed to actually have some very serious experiences, thanks also to Kaoru Nakamaru, who then came to Europe, and there was all these encounters with very important people that we were trying to convince at one point to side with us against this prevailing New World Order, which, of course, from the Second World War onwards has been American, but now is moving towards a Sino-Russian New World Order. And of course, America is losing ground because of internal enemies. And all this is very clear because we see it, of course, in the news every day, what is happening. It's not a novelty. America, unfortunately, is being destroyed from within because it poses a very serious threat to a whole new world order, which at the moment doesn't really have any opposition, because listen, there is no country that guarantees still the constitutional rights that we have in this beautiful country, the United States of America. So I tried to stay in Europe, fight my war in Europe in every possible way, politically. Also, I got involved directly with the pitchfork insurrection in Italy and all kinds of things. But it didn't work out because simply they don't have, after the Second World War, the same kind of rights we have here in America. They can't have weapons. They can't defend themselves. They basically are just like any other country, like China, like Russia. Actually, Russia, there is a lot of weapons, but Russia is a mafia country. You don't want to mess with anything. I mean, it's like living in Godfather country, Russia. While in China, is of course all controlled. And the first thing Mao Zedong did was to take their weapons. Now, this great reset was planned a long time ago. So I described the occult roots of it in volume 7, which I have here, which basically it's this book here, which not only talks about the usual things that everybody know about, Davos, Klaus Schwab, Harari. Okay. This book actually brings you deeper, makes you understand the roots of all this, where it comes from, all the lodges, the organizations, how the concept of think tank was born. It's also something I talk about in volume 8, but in volume 7, it's like I want to really show to the people how what is happening in Davos with the World Economic Forum is simply a continuation of an old plan that started with Adam Weishaupt, which continued with the League of the Just, Karl Marx, and then there is, of course, the Vatican and the influence that the Vatican has even on people like Klaus Schwab is enormous. And he himself admitted the most important moment was meeting Bishop Kamar. And in volume 7, actually, in the last chapter, I discuss this Pact of the Catacombs that happened in December 1965 at the end of the Second Vatican Council, this transformative moment for the Catholic Church. That was a preparation for the one world religion, which is unveiling in front of our eyes, where all these religious leaders are simply agreeing disagree, but at the same time, they all agree in the name of science. And of course, science seems to prevail over reason is actually their supreme reasoning is just science. There is no God. The Pope closed down the churches just like everybody else, closed down the mosques, the synagogues during what happened with the pandemic. So the health of the world spiritually is in very bad conditions. The world is looking more and more towards matter, towards impersonificating the rich and famous that happen to be a football player or maybe an actor or maybe somebody else. But this projection is basically simply a substitution of what in ancient times used to be the gods of ancient Egypt, of ancient Rome, of ancient Greece. You know, we had many. And so there was a great choice for everybody to get really into. So the Catholic Church simply transformed everything, upgraded it with the concept of saints, which of course still exists. And I must say then the Catholic Church mixed up with the then animist cults. In volume 8, I described the importance that, the voodoo, but then you have to talk about voodoo, every single way of pronouncing it is a different root in this manifestation of these ancient animist religions that then arrived in Haiti and melted created a meltpot with Freemasonry and what then became Martinezism, and then the foundation for the ancient and accepted Scottish Rite, believe it or not, is not here in America, in Washington, but it's actually in Haiti. So, I mean, they took many years, the archivist nowadays, even the guys, Arturo de Hoyos, who is in charge now of the archives of the Supreme Council in Washington, and all these other historians. And in the end, they discovered that basically the guy who manifested all this manifested from a background which is very unusual, because we tend to think, of course, when it comes to Freemasonry, especially the ancient accepted Scottish Rite, we all know about the Templar link, no? But then we simply think that everything stops there. No. These degrees are a melt pot of all the various mystery schools, and that's why they are called Illuminati. They want to conduct themselves in an illuminated way, thinking of the rest of the people as prisoner of obscurantism, of superstition, while they can fly high and rule the world as gods. Because this is the problem here, and that is what I try to say in my books. That's the center belief of these people who are conducting themselves in this new world order, believing they're gods. That is unfortunate, but that's how it is. So I started to publish these books in Japan, but I wanted to publish them in the English language. I wanted to publish them also in my native place of Italy. It took years to convince publishers to then take the first move. And in 2012, an Italian publisher made the first move, just gave a chance to one of my books, and it became a bestseller, and all the others followed up. And at that point, it wasn't only big in Japan, like Alfred used to sing in the 80s, but it was actually big, also very big in Italy. In Italy, though, the year after publishing something like 4 or 5 books, one after the other, becoming immediately very popular, because I could finally publish all the books that nobody was willing to publish before, I got involved politically. I got involved in activities that, of course, at that point wanted to simply manifest what I was writing in my books, because my books up until then were taken as just, okay, the guy is talking about the stuff, is interesting, we can eat a pizza and then laugh all about it and have a drink. But when you get to the politics and you actually start participating, you're running for parliament, you're getting people to move in the streets, there is actually, full squares with thousands of people that are willing to really do a revolution. Well, that is different. Then the system starts to, and that's when they pulled off all my books in Italy. They censored me after having me on TV regularly and stuff. I immediately was banned, because what happened was this: when I went back to live in Italy in 2009, between 2008 2009, in the middle of 2008, I had to flee Norway because I was accused of espionage, suddenly, after not accepting their offer for stopping my activities. They accused me of espionage.
Yeah.
To ruin me, because at that point everything was frozen. I had been living there, I had all my assets there. They froze everything for 2 years until 2010. There was this accusation pending on me. I was, of course, at the end dismissed because it was complete rubbish. But in the meantime, I was also trying to insert myself in a system like Italy, which is equally corrupt. And they initially accepted me because the Academy of the Illuminati there just simply said, well, we will send you on TV, we will let you do this and that, just don't involve yourself in politics.
Yeah.
So, I was like, and that was, for me, my grandfather was a politician. I was born breathing politics in a way, like my father was a psychiatrist, but my grandfather was a big politician. So I had this, and then my family has this background for centuries of being civil servants of various kinds and of working at very high level within the courts of Europe. So
okay.
I find myself, unfortunately, dragged into politics naturally. I don't even have to do much to especially when I was in Italy. Here, I came as a political dissident. Here I am basically simply now, fortunately, I'm a green card holder. I'm a permanent resident of this great country, and I hope to become soon American, so I can live forever behind those times, terrible times in Italy. Because after I got involved and they started censoring my books, they started to threaten my life, the life of my wife. They went after me in every way possible. They locked me up, picking me up early in the morning, like they did with Roger Stone in the early months of 2014. They broke through the door and they did something that was shocking for my wife, who was, American and not used to this kind of things happening. Well, now they're happening also in America. Kind of like we saw it happening in Europe, now we're seeing it. But having said that, still, I am able to talk with you freely. I'm able to now conduct my Italian show 4 times a week with no censorship. In Italy, I couldn't open my mouth anymore. I will have police coming, slamming my door, threatening me, denouncing me, and they brought me to court for those books in the end. And I had to leave Italy because that first book that became a bestseller, volume 1 in particular, which had many editions, got to 5 and then 6 and 7. It's very successful book, I must say, in Italy. It was successful also here in America. I mean, it came out, but in America, it came out after. And why it came out after? Because what happened was that this book here, this is the new edition, but the first one came out around 2015, 2014, 2015. It was basically that in Italy, in early 2014, they had dismissed all my books. They had taken them off the shelves. They had basically, they wanted me bankrupt. So I came here to America. I stayed 3 months here in California. I was living in Long Beach, going in and out, commuting all the time with Hollywood, and with my friend Sean Stone, who introduced me to a lot of important people in Hollywood. He's the son of Oliver Stone. And thanks to him, I reached a deal with this publishing company that decided to believe in my project in the English language, which though they decided to believe in it, but still they wouldn't put at disposal a translator to do it like the Japanese did it. I had to do the translation myself with my wife, work on it for years, and to translate the 5 books that had been published in Italy and also in Japan, I took maybe 3 years to translate them and prepare them and make them sound and look like not translations, because that's the main thing. Everybody can do a translation, but to actually do a book that sounds, it's basically rewriting that book. So that's how it is. With the latest book, Volume 8, is the first book which I actually published, and it's probably the only time I want to do it because this has been really difficult. 700 pages, published in 2 languages at the same time, and it was a big success, of course, in Italian as well as in English. My main, but
now,
my book,
where can they find your books? Is that on Amazon or you write it at your website?
My books, yes, I can be found at, first of all, I publish articles regularly, investigative journalist articles every week, 2 or 3 a week at least, even more, and on leozagami.com. That is the website that most people should check out my work on. And then you find the links also to my books. Otherwise, you can go, of course, directly on Amazon and put Leo Lyon Zagami. And this is basically, I think, the description of my work. And so I leave now the floor to you for asking the questions, of course, that you might be interested in.
So now you do have a YouTube channel. I've seen you over there as well.
Well, I used to have
two of them, right?
I have now a YouTube channel, but I had 17 YouTube channels removed. So I kind of like, I could have a much bigger YouTube channel, but unfortunately, every time now I go above 5,000, they boom, close it, remove it, and I have to start again. So I have a few channels, backup channels, emergency channels, and we just try to survive the censorship. But Leo Zagami has been one of the first people to be censored on the internet, even before Alex Jones. And in fact, the problem was that when they censored Alex, also they censored a lot of my material, because as you know, I worked with Alex for several years. But I also had censored a lot of other stuff, because on the internet, they started to censor my first Facebook account already in 2008. I had already like 5 different accounts that were removed by 2012. I mean, this is like a long time ago, and they would censor me for things that nowadays obscure. I mean, I was discussing like artificial intelligence and being critical about artificial intelligence, and they would simply boom scrub off my my whole Facebook, and it was weird. And it was weird also when I got involved politically. I remember one day I went to a protest in a square, and suddenly I was surrounded by some people who threatened me to get out that square, because they were, of course, people who were probably they were agitators. They were paid by the Digos, which is like the security police in Italy, the internals. Okay. It's like sort of FBI, and basically these guys threatened me. I got on the car, and suddenly my Facebook account was obscured for like 3 hours after I had gone on TV, because they had done a live connection with me with Rai Uno, which is like the main Italian TV channel, state channel, and I had talked about a topic that for them was forbidden. It was the 12th of December, and I was talking about the killings of Piazza Fontana, which were connected to the secret services, Gladio, and all that. And they didn't like that, because it was bringing out all the stay-behind operations and all the things they didn't want me to talk about. So that's it.
So let me ask you, so what is it like? I mean, for the average person, we have a normal daily life. What is it like for somebody in the order of the fraternity, like on a daily basis? Like, because these are all like high rollers, high movers. So like, they're not, I don't see them sitting down and necessarily watching TV. Is it like, how, like, show us a little bit of, I guess, like what's it like in their world?
Okay, when I personally was in the realm of the secret society network, we commonly refer to as Illuminati. And some people say, I'm saying a lot of things, but I'm not saying anything. Well, this time I hope I'm saying something.
I get it.
No, but No. It's when I was in the Monte Carlo Lodge, you are in the Principality of Monaco. Our meetings used to happen in a private lounge, which was inside the Casino of Monaco, which is one of the most exclusive places in the world. You have to be a billionaire, if you want to lounge out there. That's for sure.
Okay.
The Principality of Monaco is a very exclusive setup for sure. And it's also the gathering of secret societies from Italy and France that kind of converge there, because it's a principality that since the time, everybody knows, since the time of Grace Kelly, who became, of course, married with the Prince of Monaco, kind of he launched this place as a resort that can also be used for, laundering money, we can say that, or maybe taking in a lot of money. I mean, we're talking about a sovereign nation, the Principality of Monaco, which is this small, on a little hill in the south of France. But there is links that go to knighthood orders that go back hundreds of years, both from the actual royal family of Monaco, and of course, there we used to have the meetings between the Priory of Zion, which, of course, and this I have to make it clear, was never born hundreds of years ago, but actually in its modern emanation in the 1950s as a sort of cover-up for a P2 operation. But the French like to do it a little bit strange. They don't like just the P2, everybody very fascistic, very kind of. Instead, with the French, they started to talk about the Mary Magdalene. They like to launch people in a charade of mysteries, so they lose it all and they don't understand what is happening. But behind the scenes, basically, is a cover-up for a lot of intelligence operations, geopolitical operations. So when you ask me, what do these people do? They hang out in their yachts, they hang out in their castles, but they also, of course, because when you have a lot, I mean, I'm talking about a lot of money. I'm not talking about nouveau riche. I'm not talking about those people who go there and hang out, or, after they have a few $1 million and they think they're making it big in money. No, I'm not talking about those people.
Here talking about like old money, right? Old money.
Very, very old money,
Yeah.
So when you have all that kind of power and money, your interests are diverse. You don't have the interest of the common man. So what are we going to do today? Are we going to have a tea ritual, a Chinese tea ritual with the water that costs $2,000 a liter that comes from a little village in China that makes us soul young? That is the kind of thing that they do. Are we going to go to Moscow tomorrow morning? Tonight we're going to be in Stockholm. Tomorrow we're going to be in Rome. Then maybe we can be in New York. That is how it works. Okay. So when I said no to all this, I said no to a lot of money. And that's why today, of course, I have proven what I had to prove, because in my books, I brought out all the documents, all the stuff. And so, I mean, when you write thousands of pages and you show to the people what you know, then it's a little bit difficult to debunk. This guy's a fraud. No, but that is, why after the first few years of the internet, and I saw the kind of censorship on the internet, especially, I mean, I had my own website in 2008 hacked by the Turkish intelligence and started to talk all Turkish. Then I had things like that happening, apart from being removed from social networks or being censored in general. I mean, I remember the first thing that shocked me was when I went on this Project Camelot thing, and suddenly, after a week, we had something like, I don't know, a few 100,000 views, like 5, 6 already, like. Then after 2 weeks, it went backwards to 200,000. And I was like, something is not right here. Something is not right in this system. And we were in 2008. So I mean, it was a long time ago. And already, so for me, writing a book is a different thing, because in the book I say, okay, fine. I give you the photo of the guy, they show you the document, the details, the sources that have to be accurate, and they have to be credible. So most of the time I take them for the archives and the academic and the most boring people in the world. But that's where, I have to go and dig to find these mines of information and make it at the end credible for everybody, because then you can actually go to a university professor and say, Leo Zagami has made this book. Then he goes and he sees there is over 1,000 citations from credible, because the last pages are all citations, just like in volume 8, all citations from credible sources. And these citations also avoid me being sued, because when I write a book on volume 8 on Hollywood, and you don't want to have any problem, because here I'm talking about the lodges in Hollywood, I'm talking about the producers, the actors, but also the power players behind the system. So you want to be very serious about everything. And of course, this is the way I operate, because I have a background also as an investigative journalist. Why? It's very important to make people understand. The Illuminati have always used investigative journalists and journalists as a cover-up for intelligence activities, or other kind of cover-ups. In my case, I also had the cover-up of music production, DJing, that permitted me to go from one town to the other, one city to the other, without anybody asking. And the more cover up, the more ways you have to cover up your activities. In certain environments, you don't want to appear. But the problem is, when you ask the style of life is going to these events where, of course, at times you have all these old farts, very pompous, smoking cigars, stuff, all that. But then you have and wearing a nice cloak in a church, with a bishop or a cardinal giving you a blessing, or you have a ritual in a Masonic lodge, and then you have all kinds of rituals there. So Masonic lodges then, depending on the rites, become like a recreation of many things that you like. For example, a guy who maybe in his town is the sheriff. He goes inside the lodge and he can be a knight. He can become a servant of Solomon. He can do whatever he wants. I mean, it's also a way, and then you are given titles, of course, within the lodge, which become, which make you important, can gratify you, I guess, to a certain extent. And that happens, unfortunately, because everybody's ego is always, in play. But in reality, the real Illuminati at the highest level exist. And they are not only bad, because you arrive to a level in which there is a gray area. And then you go into the religious area, And when you find yourself in front of a reincarnated holy man who is doing his job for thousands of years in India, and you are on the same level discussing certain things, and he comes, and he meets you, I don't know, at midnight, he comes telepathically, connects to you who are in Siena, arrives in Rome at 12, and you come out of your car in front of the Colosseum, and he arrives with his bodyguards, with a thing. That is real Illuminati. There is no emails. There is no connection in the outside world, telepathically. So that's how it is. For the real Illuminati. But they are different from, they are the hidden masters. I wrote a book called The Invisible Master. It's Invisible Master. It's basically this area, gray area, in which you can have characters that, especially during the wars, play a lot of different characters. I mean, we have legendary characters in the Illuminati, like that are really not known by the common folk. I discussed one of them on Saturday when I was discussing on my show, The Occult Roots. Basically, I was discussing Nazism practices during the Nazi era, all the Nazi connections, after having analyzed the roots, also the Nazi practices. And there was this guy called Treblish Lincoln. I mean, you just go through the history of this guy, and you are like, can you do all these things in your own life? Because that is the thing that people don't realize. we are able then to do many, many different things in one life.
Yeah.
And that is weird for people, because then they meet you, I'm 53, but, some people are like, but how old are you? Because, I mean, you have lived, I don't know how many lives, doing so many different things. So there is a kind of Illuminati who are known as the noble travelers. I mentioned them, I talk about in volume 1. And they are the ones who are often engaged in act of diplomacy behind the scenes.
Okay. Now, somebody had asked, where can they find your first your first book, second book, third book, fourth book? Are they all on your site or?
Yeah, on my book, on my books. Yeah, well, regarding my books from volume 4 onwards, you can find them all linked on my website, because they are from my present publishing company, which we have been running with my wife, including volume 8, volume 7, volume 6.7. This is Cursum Perficio. The other ones are from C Publishing from Berkeley in California. It's a publishing company of my friend Brad Olsen, and he had he had the courage to bring out my first books after I had received a lot of no's. So I mean, he then went to I think was IP, I don't know, the distribution, very important distribution that there is here in the United States for books, and they liked the fact that I had so much success in other markets. So at that point, it kind of helped me out. However, I must say one thing, that nowadays, on the contrary of before, I tend to write my books in English rather than writing them in Italian. I find it a bit more easy, because then I kind of like, with my wife, I can work out better all the editing and everything without going into the Italian first. With Italian, it's a completely different language with a completely different set of rules. Remember, my books are essays. They're not novels. They make names. They give you dates. They give you times, and they are spot on to make you understand what's happening. In 2015, when I came up with volume 2, I said, in 2020, there will be a virus. You will be locked in your homes. This and this and this will happen. Then later, you will have a war. This and this and this will happen. All these things have been, and when I published this in early February 2022, I announced everything that happened after, and so people at times are taken back, but they are like, but what is this? I mean, how does this guy know so much? How? It's simply because we are going towards the culmination of a plan that is going on. This is stuff that goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. It's not just simply, it's like when I was discussing Saturday the fascination of the Nazis for the occult. If people think that the Germans suddenly wake up one morning and they were all fascinated with the occult, that's BS, because they have been fascinated with the occult since the Rosicrucian, the Illuminati. They have every single Masonic possible order doing this, that, and all the other. So, I mean, it's like, things have been going on for a long time. And basically, in my youth, I was lucky enough to come from a certain family, and I was inducted in this tradition. I was initiated in Freemasonry when I was 23, in April 1993. I was initiated by a Prince Aliata di Montereale, who was also a politician and a friend of my grandfather of the monarchic party. And a head of the Supreme Council for Italy, who was also recognized by the Supreme Council for Washington, one of the few people who would come here in Washington and sit like one of the members, because he was a representative of the aristocracy of the Aliata family of the Sacred Roman Empire, which is also the family of my grandmother, and my great-grandmother was the Marchesa di Gregorio. So the aristocracy is very important for these people. The bloodlines, they give a lot of importance. And if I was a dishonest individual, I would have made a lot of money, trust me. Just selling titles. I didn't have to do anything. I just had to I sell you satire. You can do it. The Vatican, to avoid having these books published in Italian, came to me in 2011, and they offered me cash on the table, and they said, we open your bank account, and we give you the Grand Mastership of knighthood order within the Vatican, which was working under the guy called Marinelli, who used to be the the head of the security, the general, John Paul II, Papa Voitiva used to call him the general. So imagine what kind of people. So I was called, I remember still now, in 2011, they called me up on the phone. So we are from the Secret Service of the Vatican, we would like to have a meeting. Okay, fine. Then I went to Rome, and I was brought in the back of a church. I think it was La Chiesa del Tritone, and there were all these like nuns and people. They were having like some kind of Easter. It was right during April, this period before Easter. So they were cutting Easter cakes, a thing, you know. And then there was this general guy, Marinelli. Now he's dead. He died, I think, last year. And he was like, you know, and I had to go and meet him, you know. It was this, it was, but in the back of a church, it was like, you know, where the priest changed himself his garments. It was really odd, you know. But they made an offer, very clear. If you want, we offer you this, and then no problem. Your life is going to be sorted. But it wasn't my intention, because my intention is different. I'm not navigating in gold. If people think that with my books I will become rich, well, it doesn't happen, because I'm not Dan Brown, and my books are, of course, serious books. Not, I mean, of course, Dan Brown has found his audience, and he has stolen little ideas here and there, and has managed to manifest them in a commercial way. All my respect for his work, no problem.
Right.
But my work is, of course, a work of research which helps people in these times of great need, which are the end times, because I am Christian. I believe in the end times. I believe they're manifesting in front of our eyes, and I believe that all the truth should be revealed at this point, and that we should play a different kind of game with these people who are obviously planning in the next 7 years to cage us in a digital prison. So we don't have much time left.
Yeah. Speaking of that, so what do you think about the CBDC, the central bank digital currency, and you know, what do you think about that that they're pushing right now?
Yeah, no, I as you know, I did this book here, which is basically the age of cyber Satan, artificial intelligence, and robotics. And when you're talking about digital currency, I mean, obviously, what happened with crypto was something like getting you used to a digital modality. But when you're talking about that currency that is controlled from the central bank, that they can switch off at the blink of an eye, you can become poor. Well, it's part of the game of the Antichrist, just like 060606 was the patent by Microsoft that they did to transform your body in a virtual depository of digital currency. You know, they actually patented this during the pandemic. So 060606. I mean, it's becoming pretty obvious. I mean, they're becoming pretty obvious. It's not because they don't hide it anymore, you see. And that's, you see, when I came here in 2014 for the first time in California, it was my first time in California. I've been in America other times, but never in California. And, you know, I heard about, you know, Hollywood, the Illuminati, this, but as I'm myself, I've been member of many secret societies and all that. I wanted to actually see it with my own eyes, what was true about it.
Right.
And I was shocked. And I was shocked of how they were becoming more and more obsessed, and also without any shame.
Right.
Let's bring it out. Let's bring it out. Let's bring out 1 million horror movies with 1 million satanic symbols all together, because that's it.
Well, the average person, they find it all to be entertaining. And unfortunately, a lot of Americans, myself included, like, you know, thrillers and things of that. So when they see this, that's kind of taboo. it gets an excitement and a rise out of people. So they capitalize on putting a lot of information right in front of people. I mean, and the average person doesn't, they just chalk it off as entertainment. They don't, you know,
Somebody here, somebody, sorry to interrupt you, but somebody here is asking a specific question. Will we need to invest by gold? And absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I don't believe that cryptocurrency is the solution. I was offered cryptocurrencies by people working with George Soros 10 years ago when I could have bought a Bitcoin for $5. I mean, and I, you know, and I didn't get it. I didn't want to join that kind. They literally, two people, and I remember my wife still remembers this. They came from this party, this you know, Soros founded. They came a lunch with my mother in my mother's house, and they offered me to buy with 1,000 euros so many bitcoins, and now I could be a multi-mega millionaire. But the thing is, I will have sold my soul to the devil. I believe that the CBDCs is simply another tool of the devil. Cyber Satan, as I call him in this book, and like I continue then the Cyber Satan in this book, because the symbology here also is very important in my books. Analyze the symbology. And when you see this came out February 2019 to February 2019. February, not 2020, 2019. So there was no pandemic in the air. This is the symbol. So, and of course, the symbol. It's a symbol that is also used in Freemasonry. It's a symbol that also, and in fact, this is me in a Masonic lodge with that symbol.
Yep, the serpent on a stick. Yep,
of course. So there is, of course, a situation in which we have to decide what to do in the next few years. We will have to abandon the cities that become smart cities, which means everything smart is simply satanic. Substitute smart for satanic. So that's what I say in my book. Satanic phone, satanic car, satanic house. You want to be in the hands of Satan? Well, make your home smart, and suddenly you hear voices and things, and Cyber Satan is gonna have you in his control. And of course, in the next few years, then there is that transhumanist move in which they're going to bring part of the machine inside you, let alone the microchipping, but all the rest, and that's it. And then you are sold off to the system.
Yeah. So one of the things I want to address for the people watching, I've been looking at some of the comments. So first of all, for you guys watching, you guys have to understand that, one, I've asked Leo not to talk too in depth about certain things so that my channel that you guys like doesn't get bothered. Okay. So all the, talk about this, and this, and in a certain context, that's not for.
We don't want this channel to become like my 17th channel.
Yeah. So I have to be gentle.
Yeah. I had to celebrate basically every time a ceremony. It was like when you bring a guy to the cemetery, every time a channel was removed.
So to make sure that my channel is okay, and you guys already who watch me know how my channel has gone from my beginnings, and I had to fight to get it back. So we have to be gentle about what is discussed. And also, out of respect for Leo, if you guys do want deeper information, he's got no problem with that. Reach out to him at his website or buy his books. Okay, so you can get the finer details.
It's important that people know you can't really put hundreds of pages of a book in a 1 hour and a half of content on the internet. Guys, if I start reading this book or this other book or this other book, it will take hours and hours and hours. So books are one thing. What we're trying to do here with you, who are doing, of course, an excellent job, I think. First of all, because you are surviving the censorship, because, of course, you know, now we know what triggers the algorithms, guys. The algorithms is Cyber Satan way of oppressing us. So this has to be very clear for everybody. We don't know for how long we will be even allowed to say what we're saying, because America is gradually losing all its freedoms. And we are at an unprecedented time in history here in American history. So we have to pray for the future of America. We have to pray for the future of a country that was born out of people who really believed in real Christianity in practice, not only in theory. They wanted to live Christ, and for that reason, they went on the Mayflower. For that reason, they left countries that were fighting, and where they thought, we want to put into place our way of life. And they managed. They demonstrated to the rest of the world how successful you can be by implementing these values. And now, of course, Satan wants to destroy it. Especially in then times when America can have a very important role in the return of Jesus, in the coming of the Messiah's revelation. So I hope I'm clear with that, with this point. We have to, first of all, believe because no matter what happens, if we will not survive in this dimension, we will, of course, join God elsewhere. But we have to fight here. We can't simply bend down, because when we destroy our soul in this dimension, we destroy it in other dimension. We destroy ourselves and a possibility of encountering God in what the Christians call paradise. No? Now, we can have a paradise on earth, but we can also have a hell on earth. And
this is true.
I think that the decisions that we will make in the next few years, and that's why in volume 7 especially, I advise people to create micro communities in places isolated from the smart cities, from the smart resistance that wants us to believe everything Silicon Valley brings out from China and reverence. And then, of course, China will have the control of everything, because by 2030, with all these idiots who are feeding data on TikTok, the cyber Satan in China is becoming more and more powerful than any other in the planet. Trust me, by 2030, it takes over the planet.
So ISO Jetpack 229 says, Leo, what's, from being involved in the orders, what's the biggest thing you took away from it?
Well, first of all, it depends which orders. Now, when it comes to Freemasonry, Freemasonry is not a secret society, but a society with secrets, which gives you an indelible initiation. You can decide not to practice anymore Freemasonry, but like all initiation is indelible. So, yes, you can be inactive, or you can decide that you don't agree anymore with the tenets of the order, the people who represented. Personally, myself, I don't agree with the Grand Lodge of California, or because it's filled up with occult idiots from the OTO, Satanists of all kinds, progressives who hate Trump. Okay, whatever. This is basically Freemasonry. When it comes down to other experiences, the Order of the Illuminati of Weishaupt is a specific tradition which I also was initiated in, and I hold the position first of head of a Minerval Assembly, then of Grand Master in Italy, and of course I was linked with this Monte Carlo Lodge, where we created this umbrella organization there that welcome different lineages from Rosicrucian bodies, Templar bodies, knighthoods, and so on. So it becomes, of course, also if genuinely done, it can become very much of interest intellectually, culturally, but not necessarily geopolitically, or you don't necessarily have to get involved with that kind of thing. However, having said that, I always noticed that at the highest levels, because of the way that the secret societies are built up, because of the activities that they pursue, you have secret societies of a religious nature, of a political nature, of all kinds of nature. Now, this distinction I made in a document which is unprecedented, which I published in volume 1 of my confession, which is a very particular document that explains how all these different societies operate, okay? The topology of the secret society. So the experience that I had with the Rosicrucians is another experience. I had it with the Fraternitas Rosicruciana Antigua, and it was to certain extent, a pleasant experience. Of course, these experiences, unfortunately, were all unpleasant once I encountered superiors who were assholes, who were maybe, people that I didn't want to have anything to do with. Now, as a Freemason, I practiced various rites of Freemasonry. I was initiated originally in Italy, so I followed a kind of continental tradition, as is known, which is basically mixes the rite and the order, so the ancient and asserted Scottish rite from the very first degree. Instead, then I went on later when I was in England, initiated in a regular Freemasonry. In emulation, I went on practicing another tradition, which is the British tradition. It doesn't have the cabinet of reflection, so the chamber of reflection. It doesn't have certain things. It's different. The way also there is less esoteric elements. It's more pragmatic in the English tradition. Right. Then you have other rites which I encountered, which I practiced. One, I became the Grand Master for Italy, which was the strict Templar observance. Now, that is a very particular tradition. I talk about it in detail in volume 3 of my Confessions, because it's linked also to this murky world of the Vatican espionage and circuits. And of course, it goes back to the so-called Priory of Zion. Now, the Priory of Zion, I said, it's not that it doesn't exist. Actually, the Priory of Zion is a cover-up for a group of Rosicrucians that kind of manifested that. And of course, there was also a political connotation, like I told you earlier, because they wanted to follow activities, anti-communist activities like the P2 in support of NATO stay-behind operations. I was brought up in stay-behind operations because when I was 19, I got called for the army. In Italy, actually, I got called. I was enrolled in the Air Force, and in the Air Force, as with my family connect, my father basically, when I was 19, said, "You are not doing very well. You have all this DJing thing. I'm gonna call my general friends," and it basically sent me to a base, and that was it. I was called into the Air Force, and I couldn't get out of it because it was I was forced. So then, though, I was contacted by these people from Gladio. It was 1989, and it was the last year that they were between 1989 and 1990 were the last years of the Cold War. They were kind of like it was critical to destroy certain documents, do certain things. And one of my first operations was to actually break into the home of a Serbian intelligence officer in the middle of the night with another guy from the 'Ndrangheta to microfilm all the material. Man, it was It was scary. It was scary for a guy who, I was only a kid almost, But it kind of also gave me a trail of this kind of operations, going with a microfilm. It was cool. But in the end, what really was more cool was when I started to see that in reality, the reality was very different. That there was something much more profound behind all this system. And I wanted to find it. And that's when I was initiated. So the first initiation was not only in Freemasonry, because Aliata was also the Grand Master for Italy of the Italian Illuminati. And so we created a project with him. And then he was himself arrested after. Here we're not talking about any kind of guy. This guy was with Bill Clinton at the White House in 1990. He was like, it wasn't simply a guy. He was a guy, very powerful guy. But when there was the end of the Cold War, everything was kind of like went in shambles. Everybody was against each other. Secret agents ran kind of like went rogue. The New World Order was kind of entering a new phase. And it wasn't the phase that saw the Soviet Union opposing America and these two forces one against the other. It was a new kind of world that was shaping up. And so I went on in this new world. I had my experiences. in Rome with people from the Banda della Maiana, Mossad at that point, all kinds of people, and they were not all pleasant experiences. Not all pleasant experiences. And at one point in 1994, my mother and my father really worried, said, but also the situation was getting really heavy for me in Italy. I had to flee Italy already back then. And I went to London. And in London, of course, London is the place, you know. I had studied Aleister Crowley, had, you know, since an early age. In my home, I had all these books. So I wanted to be initiated in the OTO. Then I became Then I was in the woods in Norway. They contacted me to become part of this Rosicrucian group, mysterious, called Fraternità Rosicruciana Antigua. And then I went on with all sorts of experiences. And then, you know, with all these experiences go degrees and things that you collect. And then suddenly you have, you know. So what is left? The guy said, what is left is an experience. What is left is an experience. And it's an experience that that I will do again, but I will not suggest to anybody, because it was possible for me to survive it, but I don't know if anybody can survive it. I mean, to say no to something like that, I don't think there will be anybody that has the courage to say no to something like that. But my mission, first of all, was to find always my faith in God and to continue with this faith. So when I went into the Impossible Mission in 2003, I went to Egypt with the Boutros Ghali family. We were organizing this thing in 2000. I talk about in volume 8, but I talk about also in volume 1, this incredible event to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the channeling of the Book of the Law, because the Book of the Law represents the ideology of the Antichrist. Do what thou wilt should be the whole of the law. And the OTO was something that, of course, I went through their degrees and I had the great passion for at that time. But are things that nowadays I will not touch even remotely, that, you know, I had to be exercised. I had to refine God really after all these experiences. And I really literally had, like I explained in volume 4, I had experiences of exorcism. Volume 6, I talk about these things. I talk openly about the fact that I got possessed, the fact that because I got attacked by black magicians that were very powerful. I mean, imagine you go against this, you go personally against the head of certain organization, and they are the most powerful black magicians on earth. They sacrifice anything. They are masters babalao. They go to Cuba. They sacrifice animals here, there, and everywhere. They've been in the jungle in Africa, immersed in the most dark sects. They went to India and got into the kulas and the most weird. These are people that go around the world collecting the most obscure initiations in the most obscure cults. And they're all part of what we commonly refer to as the Illuminati. But it's not so simplistic. The actual order of Adam Weishaupt himself it's in itself lasted not so long. Then there was many others that followed, because Adam Weishaupt said, once we are persecuted, we simply change our name. And then, as well as changing their names, they also started to compartmentalize their interests. So they created maybe the OTO for sex magic. They created this other organization for political purposes. So then they started to create think tanks. And then they went out of the realms of secret society altogether. They created basically these very reserved clubs, you know, like the Round Table, and then later on the Bilderberg Club. And, you know, they don't need to put all these... you know, when they go in Davos, you don't see people wearing an apron or going around making the same signs in the lodge. No, there is simply people who are doing what Adam Weishaupt wanted, because Adam Weishaupt was a German professor, just like Klaus Schwab. And his plan is the plan that now it's evolving into the plan of Klaus Schwab. So I think that the work that I'm doing now in America is very important because the Americans need to realize we don't have much time. And so as I'm seeing my own people completely lost, I couldn't do anything for that. I tried within the realms of not only of politics, but also of secret societies. That's why I became the Grand Master of a Christian Masonic order for a period in Italy, to try to see if I can bring some of the Freemasons towards Christianity rather than being lost in these occult groups, fascinated mostly with the Telema and all this rubbish. I, of course, in the past had dealings with this kind of people. I mean, otherwise I will not be able to provide you with all these experiences that I had. But I also think that it's about time that we study all this, and we remember, though, that the ultimate power comes only with our Lord Jesus Christ. That our ultimate power is not in some demon. These people, of course, they, evoking demon laws, whatever. I mean, guys, do you? When I see this, what happens with these people who are giving importance to these demons? Well, Haiti is the example of it. Haiti is the perfect example of how you can screw up a whole population. It's the most screwed up population in the world, ruled by gangsters who are all Freemasons. The head of the biggest gang went on an interview on PBS with a compass and square here 2 months ago in Haiti. I made even an article about it on leozagami.com. And the country is completely in a disarray, but that is because of all the demonic practices they followed. Unfortunately, there needs to be an exorcism in Haiti. They need to exorcise Haiti. They need to exorcise the whole of sorry, but we have a lot of voodoo here in America, New Orleans, and we need to.
I think the whole planet needs a blessing.
The whole planet needs a blessing. That is very important. The concept that we all need a genuine blessing, but we also need to understand that unfortunately most of the people will be led astray, will not follow us, and will probably turn out to simply be, the kind of people who go and line up in front of a place to get microchip because maybe that will bring them some convenience in their life, maybe some handouts from the state or whatnot. It's sad. But that's why I invite people to create micro communities distant from this grid system that is forming around.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things we do on this channel is we provide. I never guide and tell people this is where you have to go or what you have to do. I provide tools and experiences, things that the average person doesn't get to see or hear about, and it's up to them if they want to take the information, the education, and they want to enlighten themselves and kind of wake up to things. And one of the things we've been talking about within the last year or so is, creating your own micronation or creating your own communities. And a lot of people are waking up to this information.
We call it the Great Reject.
They're the Great Reject. All right.
Rejecting the Great Reset, the Great Reject.
Yep. A lot of people are forming their own communities. Families are getting together and buying land and creating their own, communities and areas. And so there is definitely a push, but as you know as well as I do, you're never going to see the full story other than what they want to be shown on TV or anything, which is why the internet is a fantastic place, fraught with good, evil, light, and dark. But if you search whatever you're going to search out, you will find. And so a lot of people on my channel have searched me out because they know that I like to provide, good information and tools that they can use to do as they see fit. But overall, we are, light based, but we're not afraid to go places to get information and then make our own determinations on how we're going to use it and lead our life with that. So definitely, I definitely appreciate all your information. It definitely has been a lot of insightful things.
Well, I hope that in some way I can provide a useful service, especially because, like I said, we are at a turning point in history. So you will have to make decisions that are critical for yourself and for your future right now, and rather than postpone them. I mean, I could have stayed in Europe in 2019. I could have decided to stay in Italy. But the risk, I knew what was coming, and I knew that, and in fact, Italy the next year became one of the most oppressed countries in the planet after North Korea during the pandemic. And it was just, oppression. I could have never lived in Europe, and especially in Italy, where, it became impossible, I think. It showed the difference between a society like America, which really strives for freedom and liberty, and these technocratic, oppressed societies of Europe. Let's not forget, guys, that they call themselves at time republics, like the Republic of Italy, the Republic of France, but they have nothing to do with the American system. It's a completely different system. The Illuminati destroyed all the monarchies with the specific intention of destroying their religions, because they know, for example, the Tsar represents the Orthodox faith. Boom, bring him down. The Kaiser, each monarch. And the only one surviving was the one that made the deal with the devil. It was the British monarchy, the most corrupt, the most, that made the compromise. And then at that point, they were the only one to survive the whole thing. But when you transform yourself in a republic, and you don't really have a constitution like the American Constitution, you are just playing a joke. It's a joke. And so for me, it's rather shocking. Italy became a republic rather recently in 1946, and it was a fraud perpetrated on the Italian people by the Democrat Party in America that decided that they made this poll going around Italy saying, do you prefer the republic or the monarchy? Italy didn't know how to read and write. Most of the people were ignorant, the peasants, and they said, put here for the monarchy, and it was the republic.
There you go. Yeah.
And then now we have the Republic of Italy, which is the worst of the worst scumbags, manipulated by the Vatican. It's all mafia. It's like the Godfather. It's basically president of Italy, a guy from Sicily who is a mafiosi. His father was an uomo d'onore. I mean, with all the respect to the mafiosi, because each one does their own job. But you have to understand also who are the mafiosi, because mafia comes from masonry. The heads of the mafia were actually the heads of Freemasonry, and still nowadays in Sicily is like that. So there is a very profound culture. People think that being gangsters, they watch the movie Don Corleone, they watch The Godfather Part 3, and they think they have seen it all. Let me tell you that The Godfather Part 3 shows you the truths. The fact that he's knighted by the Vatican, the fact that he meets a prince in Palermo during the thing. All the real things are actually shown for little frame seconds, just to make you understand. They know, everybody knows. What is the most important thing that Don Corleone received? Is the blessing of the Pope and the knighthood. That's it. The Order of San Sebastian, I think it was. That's it. For him, it's like, whoa. And then you enter into the club of the Vatican. But that is, guys, that is the real mafia. That is the real mafia. It's no joke.
So would you, and I know I have my belief in this, but I'd like to hear yours. So would you say that a lot of these movies that come out either Hollywood or wherever else, they have lots of bits of truth in them from things that happen, behind closed doors or in the private, that they're showing us a glimpse into their world, would you say? Well,
in volume 8 of my confessions, I explain how since the late 30s, they even put together ELO, which is Entertainment Liaison Office with the Pentagon. They have an office in Hollywood. The Pentagon has an office in Hollywood. Every single movie that is produced in Hollywood that wants also a link with the military industrial complex, maybe to borrow a tank or something, they all the script, everything that the script has to be evaluated and censored by the military industrial complex. And this happens also with many other things you will not even imagine, TV series and whatnot. So I showed for the first time in volume 8 the people who are actually responsible in the Pentagon today, not yesterday, not 100 years ago, today, where he comes from. He used to work at the Pentagon, what he used to do before he came to Hollywood. This is making investigative journal, but it's also exposing the truth and finally making you understand the big manipulation game. The fact, how did Hollywood come together? I show in my book for the first time that Hollywood came together through an occult ritual. An occult, there was this guy called D.W. Griffith. Everybody knows about him because he made the film that paraded the KKK as heroes in 1915. And it was the first film that was ever screened in the White House. The KKK were the heroes. Imagine that. How sick can that be? It was a film to promote the KKK. The year after, because of course, a lot of criticism, you are basically relaunching the KKK. They were going out of fashion. You are relaunching them. Fine. He makes another film. The film is called Intolerance. That film in 1916, you can find it on YouTube, shows Babylon, ancient Babylon, the gates of Ishtar, everything, the elephants of Ishtar, the gates, the whole of Babylon. They had 10,000 actors for that film. There wasn't any graphics you can do. They reconstructed the temple and everything, and you can see it. And then they left it there. That's why now Brad Pitt, they made the fictional movie there with the guy, the director of La La Land, called Babylon, because this D.W. Griffith in 1909, which was a very specific year, 1909 and 1910, there were some very crazy rituals going on. And I'm going to tell you soon which rituals went on, very serious rituals. One was in the desert in Northern Africa, when Aleister Crowley with Victor Neuburg opened the gates of hell, and the demon Coronzon was invoked. The year after in Caxton Hall, Crowley did the first public ritual, rite of Eloises, in which he did the kind of Marilyn Manson, cut himself on peyote and in front of the journalists for the first time. So that was shocking, and it was a moment of the beginning of, I call it the beginning of the egregore of rock. But in 1909, while he was rising this Coronzon, this demon of the abyss, free, half of 666. That's when D.W. Griffith arrived here in California, in a little town, in a dirt road, that said, hey, I'm going to make a movie here. And it was California. So it all started in that period. And then Crowley came to America and he says, well, these guys in Hollywood, the cocaine, orgies, what bunch of depravate. Well, depravate, he loved depravated people. He loved perversion. And so the first Gnostic Mass was not done in London, was not done in Paris, it was done in Hollywood, on a corner road of Hollywood Boulevard. And I write about it in my book, Volume 8. So as you can see, this is consistency, this is history, this is historic. Just as when I talk about all the financing that went into the creation of each and every studio, and the lodge where Laurel and Hardy, John Wayne, and all the other Warner Brothers, they all used to meet up in Northern Hollywood. There was this lodge. I talk about, this is facts, not fiction. So I think that even Freemasons, I talk about, of course, once again, the importance of Prince Hall Freemasonry in Black culture and in Black music. Prince Hall Freemasonry and all the tradition that goes with it. And this is very important. People really don't know, and all the various fraternities that were created, even the ones that are paraded with their symbol by people like Beyoncé during her concert in Coachella Valley. So it's like there is, unfortunately, these days an attempt to destroy the brotherhood of humanity, to divide and conquer. And this is very sad, because in reality, we should all be brothers and sisters. We should all really, the Freemasons, they call themselves brothers and sisters, but they're not any longer, because even they are manipulating and kind of not really reflecting. The birth of Freemasonry was Christian, and suddenly in 1813, they opened up to other religions, and suddenly in the 1870s, they opened up to atheism and to Satanism at that point. So I think that is rather clear that all the institutions at the moment are corrupt.
As I always say, anywhere where there's man, there's bound to be corruption. That's the thing. Some way, shape, form, or fashion. But yeah, I definitely agree that there is there's a lot of things going on, and until we do like stuff like this where we educate the people so that they can get the information to even know what's going on, whether it's on a spiritual level or whatever, that they can at least wake up to the information to be able to protect their kids, protect themselves, know what's going on, resist it, to be able to identify friend from foe, good from bad, because otherwise
it's not an easy task, even from the very early beginnings of Hollywood. It wasn't an easy task. When you have a guy like Charlie Chaplin, who is seen by everybody as the great hero who gave the great speech on the dictator and everybody loves him, no, he was a pedophile. He was a pedophile, like many others in Hollywood. And it's there is some dark secrets behind this world of glitter and fame, and that's unfortunate, but that's also the truth. However, today we have tried, I think, to bring certain truths to your viewers, and I know they're hard to accept at times, because it's hard to accept that everything is manipulated and everything is and that basically we are treated like cattle in like numbers. But I think that if people have reached you and they are viewing you and they are following you, they are at least willing to learn more and to maybe exit the matrix that is surrounding us.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, is just getting the information out there. And if they want deeper information, once again, they can here, let me make sure you get your site back up there. They can definitely reach out to your website and grab the books. I highly recommend them. And once again, I think somebody said that they were also available on Amazon. Is that true?
Yes, absolutely available on Amazon. They're all available on Amazon. And, like we the people, I mean, we have a great tradition here. 1776 is definitely a very important date. And it was a choice to do a republic rather than a monarchy.
Right.
But there is something that I address in the last chapter of Volume 7, which is very important, I think, for all people to realize. This is a republic on which we stand with an expiry date. The return of Jesus, who is king. He's not president. There's no election. There's no impeachment. There is no BS. There is at that point a monarch. And it's very important that we have a monarch soon, because if we don't get a monarch in the next 7 years, we are going to be wiped off the face of the earth by communism. Communism is led by dictators who are going to be there for decades, like Xi Jinping. Dictators are basically now ruling our world. Vladimir Putin is laughing at us. We are the laughing stock, because a republic on which we stand is a great experiment, but the founding fathers, they actually created this constitution in defense of something really precious, and we are not doing enough to protect it, because we are disrespecting. We are putting the president, former president, in front of a charade like we are seeing tomorrow. This is complete shame for what they're doing to the figure, the office, the higher office in this land. You think that this is possible? I mean, this is like, but it's a charade that is very dangerous. The results might be in the future civil war.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of things going on. The biggest part is that the average American doesn't know what's going on. And, much like in the book, The Art of War by Sun Tzu, it's, confuse the masses. If you have people, if you entertain them, like Caesar said, if you entertain the people, give them bread and entertainment, and, they're not going to revolt. They're not going to know. So, yeah, that's the biggest thing. So I see we're pretty much out of time, brother. But I just want to let you know that if you want to finish up with any last couple of things, and then we'll close her down.
Well, this great country has two great amendments, the First and the Second Amendment, and I think that they really speak for themselves. So they provide the one is the solution to the in the sense that you can't have one without the other, because here we will have to defend the right to really have our freedom, but our freedom it's something that is also in respect of God. Now our freedom seems to be parading Baphomet at the Capitol Hill with a bunch of Satanists who are putting instead of baby Jesus, baby Satan in a little finger. I mean, this is a mockery that is becoming way too dangerous. With my books, I try to unveil this word, and I'm very glad that there is people like you who are at least interested in listening to me, because I've been unfortunately censored the left, right, and center, and there is very few people who want to give me space because they fear for the consequences. So I'm really I'm glad that you at least you don't fear the consequences. You are just gave me this platform, and you've been really incredibly hospitable, and so I thank you, and God bless you all, and God bless America. Hopefully tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you.
Day. Let's not ruin this great union, otherwise we will find ourselves in the next years having to decide for a national divorce. Divorce are always painful, so let's hope we can
always.
Take care.
All right, Leo, thank you for coming on the show. I definitely appreciate you, and I'll be in touch with you, brother.
Oh, well, I'm looking forward to other interesting discussions in the future. And
definitely. We'll get you back on here again. Appreciate you.
It's interesting to see that there is Americans who are preparing, and they're preparing in the right way. So good luck with all your projects.
Thank you. Just a little freedom and light. That's all we offer. All right, guys. So once again, the Bad Wolf bringing you guys some more interesting information. As always, everything here is entertainment and education. We are just providing you guys with a little bit of an insight to Leo's world. And so some people might be for it, some people might be against it. Once again, it's information. And you can't be afraid of going to this source, that source, or wherever else to learn things about what's going on. Now, as with all things, everyone's going to have their interpretation of certain events. So I would suggest if you want to find out more about Leo's truth and what he's gone through, then feel free to get one or two or whatever of his books and read for yourself. So I can't say that everything he's gone through is, 100%. He can't say that everything I've gone through is 100%. All we are is people on a path that we've been exposed to certain life things, and whether you guys want to believe them or not believe them, like my life and sharing it and what I've gone through, there's no possible way I can convince everybody what I've gone through is legit, or what I'm even going through now, or what I'll go through tomorrow, or what you guys have gone through. I'm sure everybody out there has been through things that if you say, hey, this is the most crazy thing I've been through, there's always going to be somebody who doesn't believe it. Doesn't mean it's not true. So much like, the Bible, I wasn't there, he wasn't there, you guys weren't there. So we read these things. So all I'm suggesting to you guys is that you take my information, his information, and whoever's, and just research it, put it to thought, and continue above all else to appreciate your life, everything you're going through, your struggles, and understand that other people out there might be going through struggles, but that these things are real to that particular person. And so above all else, govern yourselves accordingly and make sure that you guys are living the best lives you can. Try to stay out of danger and harm's way and BS and drama and all the rest of that. Unless you're into that, that's fine. It's your life, which is the biggest takeaway I want to give you guys about my channel, is that I want you guys to live whatever lives you guys want to. Just be the best you possibly can. Take care of yourselves and each other. And as always, every once in a while, I will throw in things that are not exactly on my channel's direction, but I like to ebb and flow with different information every once in a while because, that's what life is. And it's about, you've got a plan, you've got a direction, a line of sight. You think you're gonna hit that point, and then something diverts you off. So that's just keeping it real. So as always, guys, thank you. We'll probably be on next week, same bat time, bat channel, and we'll be back to all of our normal things. But I know for one, having met him and through a mutual a friend, and for him to reach out and to be able to talk to somebody who's got different experiences, it's always been something I've always wanted to do, is to be able to have somebody on. So this definitely was a blessing to be able to talk. Like I said, keep in mind, one of the reasons why he did not go deep into information, at least here, is because I said, hey, we don't want anything too controversial mentioned here for obvious reasons. And also, I told him, I was like, I want you to be able to sell your books, so we'll do that on there. So hopefully you guys can understand that and respect that. He does have his website up, or at least it was up. So if you guys want to reach out to him and ask him some more questions, feel free to email him. You know what I mean? He's not hard to find on almost any of the platforms. So that was one of the things I wanted to do is for you guys to, reach out, ask. I mean, he's not hiding. If he was, not trying to do any of this, he can't, it's kind of bad to go on a YouTube channel if you're trying to hide your information of who you are and what you've claimed. So that's it, guys. Take care of yourselves. Not a terribly late show tonight, but an interesting one nonetheless. And as always, just providing some education, some entertainment, but wanted to, Corrupted's got it up here. So we'll put the link, that up there. So there's his site. You guys can reach out and contact him, email him, get books, whatever you want. And just to keep it real, I don't get paid from any of that. And he took the time out of his day to come on the platform. So I appreciate anybody who shares their time, information, and especially all of you guys. Thank you guys. Because in all honesty, I recognize some of your names in the comment sections, and I spend more time talking with you guys than sometimes people even immediately around me, in all honesty. So I'm normally in the books reading, and unfortunately, a lot of people, though you guys love me, they're just like, he reads too much, he's a nerd, and this and that and whatever else. But I love it, so so thank you guys for being there to support the show and this crazy thing called life that I'm sharing with you guys. So I see Mr. Fearless Floyd is just popping in. Yeah, our man just jumped off. He said he can only probably be on there for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. So he overstayed even for him a little bit. Man's definitely busy. So thank you guys. I definitely appreciate you. I will be yeah, we're gonna probably get Sherry Peel Jackson back on at some point in time. I just don't want to bore you guys with the same people, same stuff. So I'm trying to keep it kind of fresh with new things, new perspectives. And so I did see somebody mention that it would be cool to have a seminar with them. Maybe we'll do that, because in the seminar you can talk about a whole lot of different things that aren't discussable without being censored on this or a certain other platform. So maybe we'll do that. All right. So that's it, guys. Have a great night. Thank you all for watching and chiming in. I'm gonna let you guys get going, and I'm gonna get back to reading some books and seeing what else I can learn and enjoying this crazy thing called life. So to each one of you guys, thank you. Don't forget to hit that bell, like, subscribe. And once again, the support from you guys has been more than a lot of people out there in my immediate. So thank you for that. And support yourselves. Take care of each other. Have a great night.